You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the show. Thank you, as always, for tuning in and giving me your time. I know there are a million other things you could be listening to right now, and the fact that you've chosen this one means a lot to me, so thank you very much. This one's really exciting. Rick and I have known each other on the internet for a very long time. He's been a listener of the podcast since pretty much day one, and as such, we've interacted in the Tone Mob Facebook group and on Instagram for years and years, so it was really cool to finally get to actually talk to him, especially after this collab we just did and all that. So this was really cool. Nice to get his backstory and just catch up in general, actually, with a conversation instead of just regular old messages. So that has been a lot of fun. Just want to give a quick little plug here, and then we'll get right into the episode. So, as I've been talking about for weeks now, I've got a text thread going where you can text me at 503-751-8577. And last week, I gave those people a sneak peek at the first track off of my upcoming EP, which I'm really, really excited to share with everybody. But yeah, I texted out the first track of that to those people, and the feedback's been really great, and it's been really cool to chat with people one-on-one in real time about music business, about art, about creation, about podcasting, about cooking, about cars, about anything under the sun. So that's where I'm putting out all kinds of content that isn't necessarily just guitar gear focused, and it goes straight to those text people, and it's been really fun to chat one-on-one with everybody. And as of right now, I still can reply to everyone. So that's been really cool. Those one-on-one conversations have been excellent. And it's really me. It goes right to my phone. The first couple opt-in things are automated to, take care of the legal mumbo jumbo and all that. And I'm not doing anything with any of that information ever. I'm not selling it to anyone. No one will have access to any of your data. That is just so that we can contact each other. So again, that phone number is 503-751-8577. If you want to text in there, we can chat. So yeah, if you text me EP, I'll go ahead and send you the track I sent everybody last week. So you can check it out. Let me know what you think. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this episode with Rick Calhoun from Honey Picks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Rick Calhoun from Honey Picks. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to do this. We've, talked on the internet for ever.
Yeah.
And you started your company fairly recently, and we did the pick collab together and all that. And I was like, well, why are we not doing a podcast? This feels overdue.
Yeah, man. I've been listening to your podcast for years now, and it just kind of feels surreal that I'm actually doing it now. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's just life changing sitting in front of your computer.
Well, I'm away from my kids and family. I'm actually on Christmas vacation right now, but I'm making picks during the week, and this is actually a little time from the craziness that my twins and my little girls put me through.
I see. Taking a little break.
Yeah.
So you've listened for a long time, and you've not just listened for a long time. You've interacted with me in the various forums, whether it's on IG or the Facebook group or whatever. Like, we've talked digitally about all kinds of things for forever. There's a handful of people that do listen to this show that I have a kind of a relationship with in that way, where we talk on the internet all the time, in addition to them being a listener, and you're one of them. But when did well, maybe we need to reverse a little bit. I was going to say, when did you start your company? But we can get into that a little bit later. Like, when did you start playing guitar? What's your story with all that?
Okay, so with guitar, when I was a little kid, I knew my dad had an old guitar that he kept in his closet. And my dad didn't play guitar, but I knew it was in there. And I started playing, clarinet and saxophone in band. And I must have been 15. I think I was a freshman in high school. And I was playing saxophone in a jazz band. And all of a sudden I look over at the guitar player and I'm like, man, he is so much cooler than me. I just really want to play guitar. And so I went home and I was like, hey, Dad, you know that guitar you got in the closet? Would you mind if I played it and figured out what it was? He's like, sure, man, take it out. I'd love for you to be able to do something with it. So I got this guitar and I got like a Mel Bay book or something and quickly learned what tabs were, and we're doing all that and teaching myself. All to find out I was playing on my grandpa's 1965 Gibson J45.
Oh man. Yeah, that old guitar, that old thing.
Yeah. And so that's good. That's the guitar I started on and learned on. And it's kind of a shame because I feel like I started with the best. And like right after that, I had to get, my mom and dad were gracious enough to want me to keep pursuing my guitar and music. And they took me to the pawn shop and got me a Suzuki Strat copy guitar with a solid state Gorilla amp. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't sound like the guys on the radio. So
we've all been there. We've all had that problem.
That's kind of how I got into guitar. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Not quite such a drastic step, going from a 65 J45 to a more budget friendly thing. But when I first started too, it was like, oh yeah, you can play this old Takamine. Yeah.
Been in the family. And it was like a 1970s, Takamine or whatever. And I'm like, in retrospect, and then it's kind of a confusing story, but it basically had to go back to my grandpa at some point because he was just letting Dad borrow it for something. And my mom had a 1970s Yamaha in her closet, which is also a great guitar. And I didn't know any better, and apparently Dad didn't know any better either. And so I went to go shopping for my guitar.
Right.
And I picked out this relatively cheap, I think it was like $220 or whatever, like this, but it was a really pretty blue Ibanez acoustic.
Right.
It's fine. Like there's nothing like wrong with it, and it definitely worked. And I still have it because sentimental reasons, but my mom traded her Yamaha to get it. Now as an adult, I'm like, we should have kept the Yamaha. Those things are great.
Oh man, those was it the old red label Japanese made Yamahas?
Yes, exactly.
Those are great.
Yes, I don't know what. I'm like, no. Why did we do that? No.
Yeah. I had a classical. It was like a '70s Yamaha classical guitar when I first when I was kind of starting. And I didn't realize how great it was because I just didn't know. And I traded it for a deluxe Memory Man. And the Memory Man is cool, but you can get a Memory Man any day. I can never get that guitar back,
That's true.
So
that's true. Yeah, it's weird. The things we learn as we go along.
Oh yeah.
Just this weekend, my dad's got my other grandpa's, the same grandpa who has who gave me the Les Paul Jr. He had this 70s Aria acoustic, and I was trying to figure out, I'm like, this guitar sounds really awesome, and it plays really awesome. And then I looked into the history of that particular one. I think it's called like a J12, and it turns out it's because it's like a D18 copy.
Oh man.
and made really well, you know. And it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you just copied one of the classic models, so of course it sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't sleep on the 70s Japanese guitars, and everybody. There's some good stuff out there, and it's not all that expensive. They're just
No.
really good.
I'm still amazed at the modern acoustics Yamaha put out. Like, even the cheap stuff sounds great, you know.
I haven't played the acoustics of the newer Yamaha, but the electrics are awesome.
Yeah.
I've played those a bunch of times, and those are killer. I don't know why nobody's talking about them, but they're awesome.
Those Rev Stars are really cool. I like those
They
guitars.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Those things are awesome. So as you progressed, did you end up playing in bands or anything? What happened?
I mean, yeah, but most of my playing has been like in a praise and worship band at church. And I've been doing that on and off. Let's see, I probably started when I was 16, and I'm 34 now. So I've been playing in churches mostly.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha. Lots of capos involved then.
it just depends. Like, you know, I capo when I have to, but I don't capo as much as I used to.
I've been on this capo kick lately. I'm holding it right now, actually, this old Dunlop capo that I don't remember where I've got it, but I've had it for like a million years. Like, I've had it for so long, and it just keeps, I lose it occasionally, and then I'll find it in a random drawer, and I don't know, it's always just worked. But I posted about it the other day, and everyone was really raving on the G7th, so I'm going to try the G7th capo here pretty soon. We'll see if I can be persuaded into some new capo technology. We'll see what happens.
Those do look cool. The first capo I ever had, I got it at like I think it was a flea market, and it had like this stretchy bungee material on the back, and you just had different, like a belt, different holes of how tension you want it. Mm-hmm. And I could never get that thing to be in tune putting it on. It just never worked. But
I remember those things. I've seen those before. It's like, ooh, that good in theory, but doesn't really work.
Yeah, not really.
So tell me about the picks. When did you decide to start making picks, and how did you come out of the gate so hot? Like, they all look so good. I mean, I've only experienced a few of them myself, but I can tell they're really nice picks. How did you figure all this out?
Well, I didn't take pictures of my first picks that I made.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, to back up a little bit, me and my brother worked together at the same place. And at the shop, we have a laser. And he don't play guitar. But we had this extra acrylic laying around. And his name's Andrew. And he came over to me. He's like, "Hey, Rick, I got this laser and we got acrylic, and I bet we can make picks out of it." And I'm like, "Yes, we can. We can definitely make some picks out of this." So I got on CAD and drew up some different shapes. I didn't want to copy anybody. I wanted to, do something different, but still kind of in the same classical type shape. And so we drew some things up, and he would cut it out on the laser, and we would try to learn how to bevel it as best as we could. The first ones we did were pretty bad. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to ever see them. But as we kept going, we kept getting better and better and better. And I guess right around the end of March, 1st of April, right when the whole COVID thing happened, that's when we felt like we were actually making decent enough picks that I could actually sell them. And so that's how that started.
And did you just start, like, how did you get your first customer? I know that's something that a lot of people want to get into the gear market, and they don't, they might have an idea or they might have a product, but they don't really know where to start. So how did you get people interested in the first place?
Well, I've always, I love gear. And so I shop on Reverb all the time. And so I thought, I bet I could sell some picks on Reverb. But the thing is, when you go and you ship something on Reverb, it doesn't give you small parcel package price for shipping. So you're asking $5 for a pick, and then you're asking $8 for shipping. No, I mean, that's a lot of money just for a pick. So I did that for just a couple. I think I sold like 5 picks on Reverb back in March or April. And then I got turned on to Etsy.com, and I started selling Etsy and doing that way. But the first people that started buying my picks were pick collectors and other pick makers, believe it or not.
Interesting.
And yeah. It's
just because they wanted to explore, or just see what the competition was doing, or what was the reasoning there?
Well, it's kind of like, I've heard you talk about it many times on the show, like the pedal community, and the guys are always helping each other out and just really friendly with each other. And it just sounds like a great place to be. I'm telling you, the pick, like all the different pick makers, like the guys that are doing, not like Jim Dunlop or Ernie Ball or the big guys. I'm talking about the guys like me. We are a tight-knit group, and we really, we enjoy each other, and it doesn't feel competitive at all. We're all trying to help each other out. And it's really something. It's really a blessing to be a part of, really.
That's interesting. That has to be, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but in my view, that has to be such a smaller batch of people, at least currently, than say the pedal community, for instance.
Oh gosh, well, the pedal community. I mean, if I feel like I'm finding out about a different pedal company every week.
You probably are.
Yeah, I mean, I can't keep up. I used to be able to keep up with it, but I can't keep up with it anymore. But yeah, with the picks, there's probably around 20 of us, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure I'm missing some, but I'm just ballparking around 20 of us that are, selling, that are not doing like 1 or 2 a month or something like that.
Right.
So,
right. Is this something that you think you want to, eventually pursue full time, or what are your goals with it?
I mean, that would be the dream. If I could do that, that would be amazing. I've heard you say it before. You were looking for a way to get into the music industry, and Tone Mob just kind of, the podcast, and you got the gift of talking. So that kind of happened for you. I was kind of doing the same thing. I actually work in electronics, and I thought about maybe I could do a pedal business thing, but I felt like it was way too overcrowded. And it wasn't until Pix came along that I was like, oh man, I feel like I'm finally part of the community now. I feel like I'm, doing something.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because, I get this question thrown at me a lot. Like, how do you do it? How did you do it? And I'm like, well, I did it in a weird way that I don't know if it is easily, easy to replicate or not. I kind of shoehorned my way in and found out that I had some skills that, people valued, which I didn't consider skills. I didn't think that they were just, I don't know what to say. They were more like common sense things, to me, but it turns out that I'm just a big nerd. That's what it turns out is I'm a bigger nerd than I realized. But it's such an interesting angle to try to pursue because, I mean, this is weird that we're talking about this. Literally right before we started recording, I was reading this article. Elon Musk was at a conference of some sort recently with a bunch of big business people. And he was talking about AI, like he always is, and how it's going to make eventually so many jobs completely obsolete, right? Just completely pointless.
Right.
And he pointed to a couple things that in his mind were going to be sheltered from that. And the first one was the actual programming of these, AIs and other automations that are coming. But the but then he said, even in this is just his theory. He has been right quite often, so I guess it's worth paying attention to. He said that even then, eventually the AI is going to be able to program itself. Oh, and wow. I was like, well, okay, what are we going to do then? And he went on to say, like, fields that connect people, that have like a lot of, interpersonal connection between humans. He's like, I don't think that's ever going to be going away. And, things like gyms, things like, entertainment, like things like that, probably not going away. And then the last thing he said, and it was kind of weird because it was like a footnote in the article, and it was art. Like he thought that arts and artists would be fairly safe from that, which is always the big question, right? People are always like, what can't AI do? And usually it's pointed at music or art in some way, which is kind of a interesting. It's interesting to look down the barrel of that, and if that is correct, like, what does that mean for? Are the musicians magically ahead of the curve somehow for the first time in our entire lives? Like, what's going on? I don't know where I'm going with this train of thought, but it was like literally like the last thing I looked at on the internet before we hopped on the microphone. I was like, I wonder if we'll talk about that. But
I mean, I think I get it. Like, could you get an AI robot to sit down and improvise on a chord progression and then have the same thing done by a real life person? I don't think that, you know what I think will happen? I think the robot will end up sounding like a quantized drum loop or something, where everything's on the beat, where, a person playing, a lot of times when I'm improvising, I don't even know the next thing I'm going to play. It just, my fingers just do it, Mm-hmm. I don't think that, I just can't see how they could program AI to be able to do that.
There's so many complexities, especially when it comes to things like the human voice, that seem like it would, even with the most advanced technology, seems like it'd be almost impossible to replicate. Like, we're just now getting to where modeling is almost indistinguishable from the real thing when recorded. And that's taken a long time. And, a distorted guitar chord is pretty harmonically rich and pretty complicated. That takes a lot of math. But can you imagine, like, trying to get an exact, recreation of, like, Kurt Cobain's voice? Like, whether somebody likes that or not is, up for debate. But, like, I can't see a robot being able to pull that off,
No, not right now, at least.
And then, like, and also I think we tend to recognize the beauty in our messiness, and I think a robot would be too precise, or we'd be able to recognize when it's making a quote unquote error on purpose,
right?
Because I don't think it would have those tendencies, or like you say, it knows what it's going to do next, and we might be able to tell what it's going to do next too. I don't know. It's a weird subject to branch out into.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you sit down and think about everything that AI will be able to do. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy what I can do while I can do it.
That's probably a good move.
Yeah.
What kind of electronics do you work in now?
We just make transmitters and receivers. We do a lot. You've seen the commercials, I Fall and Can't Get Up.
Yes.
We make a lot of those transmitters that call nursing stations and make nurse calls, and we make transmitters receivers also for a company called Full Alert that lets you know whenever the horse is getting ready to go into labor. It's,
What? The horse hits a button or something?
No, the horse has a transmitter that is sutured to itself, and whenever it starts to dilate, it lets it sets the transmitter off, which tells the receiver inside, lets the farmer know that they're getting ready to be a foal. So,
gotcha. It's like, can't imagine the horse walking around with one of those life alert things on its neck. I didn't know that was a thing, but that makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, the guy's going to be off milking the cow somewhere while the horse is trying to give birth. I never really thought of that before.
Yeah, some people really take their horses serious. Those horses that race. I mean, they spend a lot of money on them horses, so it's really important to them to know when they're getting ready to, have a baby.
I mean, yeah, horse people. We think gear people are weird. Start talking to horse people. That's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother ball game. You got to be dedicated if you're going to be a horse person. It's hard to do horses like halfway, even if you aren't like racing them or doing any kind of competition. It's hard to like just kind of be into horses.
Yeah, you can't really just kind of do it.
No, it's like, oh, I have horses sometimes. Sometimes I don't. You got to be dedicated, man.
Yeah.
But on the gear side of things, like, how did you find the podcast, and how did you like get so involved in all of the online communities and everything?
I'm just a gear nerd, and so I was on the gear page, and I haven't been on the gear page in years, but I used to follow it like crazy. And I found there was only a couple podcasts. I used to listen to Guitar Nerds when it was GAK, and I listened to them for a long time. I listened to Wampler, the Chase and Tone podcast with Wampler, I think was on just before you for a little bit, and I listened to that, and I think it just came naturally that I found yours either by Instagram or by a group on Facebook or something. But I mean, I found you really, really quick. And so that's about how that happened.
Yeah. The Chasing Tone podcast was around for, I'm not sure how long before I started it, or not started it, but before I started this one. It was, I want to say, I didn't get involved in Chasing Tone until after episode 100, but it was definitely one of the shows that I was like, oh, this podcast about gear. I remember like my friend Leon, he was like, dude, you got to check out this Chasing Tone podcast. I'm like, what do they talk about? He's like, well, they talk about all the same stuff we talk about. I was like pedals and guitars and stuff. He's like, yeah, like there's podcasts for that. I think at the time I only knew of like Adam Carolla's podcast and like maybe a handful of like businessy type ones or whatever. But I never thought that like there would be hobby type podcasts, which of course there were hundreds, if not thousands of them at the time that are really nichey like this.
Right.
And I started listening to Chasing Tone. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'd been listening to it for like 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there. And I was like, well, there doesn't seem to be an interview show. And I'd already kind of gotten started on Instagram a little bit by that point, but I couldn't find where there was another interview show for gear nerds and guitar people. And I found this Ringer app, and I was like, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Here we are. It's weird to look back on that time in my life, because it was very much like I wanted to do something, but I didn't know how or what, and I was just trying stuff.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, and it was really cool listening to your podcast because it was so different than Chase and Tone or Guitar Nerds, because you were interviewing people. Like you were interviewing the people that were actually making the stuff, and they got a different point of view in it. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. Still do.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I remember my friend worked at the same place that I did, and I remember coming in. I'm like, dude, I'm interviewing Robert Keeley tonight. And he's like, what? He's like, you're interviewing Robert Keeley? I'm like, yeah, on the phone. Like, I'm going to be talking to Robert Keeley. And he's like, that's so crazy. I'm like, I know what is going on right now.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Dude, that Keeley episode too, like that was a deep podcast. Like I really learned a lot about Robert Keeley in that podcast.
That was the moment for me that I thought, like, oh, I might be onto something here. Like,
yeah,
like I was really surprised that he was. I mean, we didn't know each other really at all. We had talked for like 10 minutes before to like get it all set up and get going, and then all of a sudden we were going, and I had no idea that people would be willing to talk to me about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't know that if I was struggling with things like that, I don't know if I would want to talk to some random guy on the internet about it, where potentially a bunch of people are going to hear it.
Yeah.
That episode's been downloaded like thousands and thousands of times by this point. I don't even know how many downloads it has, but I can't imagine being that open. Now I can, but at the time I couldn't imagine being that open and revealing with such personal things. But it keeps happening for some reason.
But I think that's why it made it such a great podcast, and everything that he spoke about ended up being very inspiring. To know that you can get through things and come out on the other side, even better. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, and that's been kind of a reoccurring theme. Yeah, he's not the first person to. Well, he was the first, but he's not the only person to start, expressing, their struggles with addiction. That it just seems to be kind of a reoccurring thing that happens on the show, which is really kind of astounding to me.
Yeah,
like I started this to talk about fuzz pedals, but the off, and you, since you've been following it for so long, you may have noticed like the off the beaten path stuff, the more personal things are what make it more interesting to me now, because we can only talk about true bypass versus buffered bypass so many times before it's okay, I got it. Yep. We don't need to talk about this ever again. So talking about the more, that's why I redid the description here sometime last year. It was just like, well, this is kind of a guitar show.
Right.
It's sort of. That's where we start.
Yep.
So since it's kind of a guitar show, tell me about your guitars. What do you got? What's your favorites?
Oh, man. Well, I love Ernie Ball Music Man guitars. I have the Cutlass, which is my favorite. I just love that guitar. It's like the perfect Strat. Just one volume, one tone, amazing tremolo system in that guitar. The neck just feels right. Lock and tuners, it just stays in tune. Pickups are great. What a great guitar. I mean, they knocked it out of the park with that guitar. And then I also have the Stingray, which is like their offset dual humbucker guitar. And it plays great. It's a great guitar. The other two electrics I have is a 2009 Gibson Les Paul Studio Deluxe. And I figured you'd like that one. You like the Les Pauls.
Yes.
I like that guitar. For some reason, I don't get along with a Les Paul shape as much as I do with like the curves of a Strat body, like the Ernie Ball Music Man. I say that, but then I also say I love my Fender Telecaster. I've got a 98 Telecaster that I just love. And it definitely doesn't have curves. It's just like a slab body, but I don't know what it is about that Les Paul. I probably just don't play it enough, honestly. And the acoustics I have that my dad gifted me that Gibson J45, and I have that, and that'll never leave me. I'll have that forever. And I have a Breedlove Oregon Series Dreadnought that I really like. And that's pretty much the other. I've got some other guitars that I can't think of. I've got like a Alvarez acoustic that I played when I was a kid. And I've got a Ibanez bass that I played in church for a while. That's about it.
It's really cool that you ended up with that Gibson. Getting a family instrument like that, especially when it's something that cool, it's kind of indescribable. Like, it's hard. I feel really lucky to have my grandpa's guitar, and I still remember like when he was like, "Here, you can just keep this." I'm like, "What? Like what?" Like,
Yeah.
pinch me. I'm not a lot. I can't be. This is a dream. Like, this isn't real right now.
Right.
And to him, like, he knew it was valuable, but like to him, he knew it was just like, he's gonna love this, and to me, it's just gonna sit in my closet. Like, and you got that J45 that kind of come full circle, right? It's like what you started on, and now it's yours.
What's my grandpa passed away when I was like 1.5. It was before I was 2, and so I don't really have any memories of him. But when I pick up that guitar, there's kind of like a connection that I have with him that I didn't really get to have since he passed away so early. So it's so sentimental to me, but it's also just a great playing guitar. And it doesn't sound like any other acoustic I've ever played. It just has the sound and the story. I'll just never give it. I'll never give it away. I'll never let it go.
No, and you definitely should not.
Yeah, that would be the guitar. I know when you had that crazy fire going on up there, and you had to pick like a few guitars, and that would be the guitar I'd pick. I'd grab that guitar, and that would be number one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird to like have asked that question and thought about that for so long, and then to actually put it into action was like, this is a weird feeling. That used to be like a standard question I had of if there was a burning building and you could only take one, what would it be? And I really never thought that I would have to live that, but it did make that decision really fast. It was like, that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's the one. Well, there was almost no thinking. I grabbed that and I grabbed my Mule resonator, because that one was a gift too. And I was just like, yeah, all right, I'm good. Time to throw everything in the truck. But
right.
Yeah, man, 2020, what a year.
It's so crazy, man.
This is interesting. We're recording this in 2020. It will be coming out in 2021.
Oh, so, yeah, that's true.
This is we're right on the cusp. Have you taken anything out of this year? Like, it's been a rough year. It's been wild for everyone. There's not anybody that I think that is hearing this podcast that hasn't been touched in some way by this strange year. But have you taken any wisdom or any lessons out of the year?
Yeah. Before all this crazy stuff started, on the weekends we would go shopping or whatever with the family, as crazy as it was with 3 kids and all this stuff. And we just don't do that anymore. And we're just home and we spend a lot of time just together as a family. And my kids are all small. I've got twin girls that are 7, and then I've got another little girl that's 2. And I just take the time to just watch them and just enjoy them and just try to play with them. They only stay little for so long, and then they're older. So I'm just trying to enjoy every minute I get with them.
I think that's been an interesting, juxtaposition for a lot of people. They've went from working wherever, and their kids are going to school, to suddenly being, kind of trapped together. Yeah. And I think it probably has caused a lot of people to go a little bit crazy. I can imagine. For me, it wasn't really that much different because I'd already been working at home. So it really didn't change a whole lot for me. And my kids are so young that like school wasn't really that big of a deal. He was about to go into kindergarten, and we're like, oh, well, we'll just homeschool kindergarten. It's just kindergarten, it's
right.
Not that big of a deal.
Right.
Well, actually, this is kind of a funny sidebar, but we signed him up for school, and then we decided to homeschool him. And a teacher called us like, oh, we noticed that Vincent wasn't signed up for any online classes or whatever. And my wife was like, oh yeah, well, we decided that, he's young enough that we can probably just homeschool him and it'll be okay. And the teacher was like, that's a very good idea. I was like, oh, well, if his own teacher is saying that, I guess we'll just continue with that. She must be under a lot of pressure right now.
Oh man, I can't imagine.
I can't either. How have your kids done with it? The 7-year-olds?
Well, I'm just glad they're smart. Like they really, I mean, they really are smart. And when I went to school, I did math in a totally different way that they're doing math now. They're doing this Common Core math, and I was never great at math when I was in school anyway. So the math that they're doing now in second grade is just like, I don't understand why you're having to draw 10 boxes, make a graph, and make, all these like Venn diagrams and circles for 11 minus 2. Like,
right.
I mean,
right.
But my girls are reading chapter books. I mean, they're just really smart. So the school stuff has not really been hard. So
that's good.
That's not been the biggest difference has been just for my girls not being at school full time and not being able to interact with their friends the way they normally would. It's just been a crazy year.
Yeah, it's nice. Like, it's really a stark juxtaposition from a few months ago, even though when we're like, when is this going to end? When, like, is this ever going to end? It's kind of nice that now we can like look down the barrel of the gun and be like, okay, this is almost over.
Yeah.
Like we've made it this far. We can make it another, however many months. We'll be okay.
Right.
Like, but man, if we were looking at like year 2,
yeah.
Oh no, is this ever going to end?
Yeah.
It's really nice. And for me, it's like a huge sigh of relief to be like, okay, this is going to be over, relatively soon.
Right.
And I think there's a collective sigh of relief being breathed by the entire planet, and just knowing that that's the case.
Definitely.
But yeah, when things are back up and going, what's the number one thing that you're looking forward to?
Number one thing I'm looking forward to, probably being able to go out and watch live music again with my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a good friend of mine, Andrew Bullock, and he's got a family too and kids, and that was kind of our thing to like get away and just have some guy time. And I think the last concert we saw might have been Ariel Post in Charlotte. And
it's not a bad
dude,
show.
I mean, that was so awesome. That guy, I mean, he's one of my favorite guitarists and singer-songwriters. He's awesome. And that was such a good show. I can't remember if that was the last one or if Pete Thorne was the last one I saw in Charlotte. He did a clinic down there at Midwood Guitar Studio, and oh man, so cool. I've been a huge fan of Pete forever, and both of those were really cool.
Yeah, Ariel's a great dude too. I don't know Pete. I would love to get him on the show one of these days, but yeah, he's just a funny dude.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I've told this on the podcast or not. Maybe I have, but we were at this Fender thing at the last Winter NAMM show, and it was like me and Jess and I think Scott from Stringjoy. We were standing there like watching the show, and like I get this text message. I'm like, who's texting me right now? Is it Lynn? What's going on? It's from Ariel, and he's like, the back of your head looks really nice. And I'm like, turn around, and he's just like, his face is just like right by, like almost like touching noses, like right there. I was like, oh dude, he scared me.
Oh, that's funny.
I was not expecting that at all. I assumed he was there, but it was just a funny experience. He's a good dude.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Live music though, I'm with you. That is the number one thing I'm looking forward to. That's like my wife and I's thing. Like, instead of going out for dinner and a movie, which we do that too occasionally, but if we're leaving the kids with the grandparents, it's probably because we're going to a concert.
Yeah.
And Yeah, the last show I saw was actually the last in-person interview I did as well. Was Dave Hawes, and we recorded that in the noisy. It's not even really a green room. It's like a green room that's like just up above the stage.
Huh.
Well, not above the stage, but like above the audience, facing the stage.
Oh, wow.
But the door is just a steel like gate. It's not a door. So like the guys were sound checking and we're back there trying to record, and it's like there's not a door on it. It's just blasting
crazy.
through. So if you go back and listen to that episode, it's an awesome episode, but it's very loud. But yeah, that was the last live show that we saw, and like literally a couple days later, that was the day that you went on Instagram and every musician that you follow was like, canceling my tour. Like, I'm canceling my tour. And I was like looking at Dave saying like, yeah, I canceled the tour. I was like, whoa, we just talked to you like 2 days ago. This is so weird. Like,
yeah,
what a strange time.
It's like, my wife is into the, what you call bro country.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
I hate to admit it, but I'm definitely not, but she is. But we both grew up on 90s country. And so my dad listened to that all the time. So I know all that 90s country stuff. And we were going to go with a couple friends to see Garth Brooks in concert in Charlotte.
Nice.
And I was really looking forward to that. And I think that was supposed to be in May. And we're like, oh no, please don't take that away. And I'm trying to be optimistic, like, oh, this is only going to last a couple of weeks. You know, this is going to be no big thing. And then all of a sudden they canceled that one and they put it to October. I think it was. They rescheduled it to October. I told my wife, I said, don't worry, summer's going to be here. That all the hot air is going to knock this virus out. It's going to be fine. And then it gets canceled again. So it's rescheduled for next year sometime. Who knows? Hopefully we'll get to go.
Yeah, and I feel like in some ways I jinxed it because I was really looking forward to the My Chemical Romance reunion.
Oh yeah,
and I was all scheduled with Frank. Like I was gonna bring a box of gear to nerd out on in Tacoma, Washington. And I was like, this is gonna be amazing. And Lynn was like, hey, you know, anything could happen between now and then. And this is way before like the virus was like really even talked about. Maybe like December or something. I can't remember. It was shortly after they announced the tour. So like nobody was even really talking about the Rona yet.
Right.
And she's like, hey, that's a long time from now. Anything could happen. I was like, yes, I'm so excited though. It's going to be amazing. We're going to nerd out on gear and we're going to watch the My Chem show. I never got to catch them back in the day. This is going to be great. And then I was like, it's going to be fine. I already talked to Frank about it. What's going to happen? Yeah, I did it. It's my fault.
You jinxed us.
Yeah, I did. I jinxed. It was like a year and a half out. I was like, what's going to happen? It'll be fine.
This is all your fault.
I know. What did I do? Man. So let's see. Oh, you know, we glossed totally over. We talked about your guitars, but we didn't talk about the rest of your rig or your amps or any of that other stuff. What else do you have over there?
Oh, man. I mean, my pedals change weekly. Right now, like my staples that I've got is the Ego Compressor by Wampler. Love that pedal. And the Velvet Fuzz. Those two are great. I got that new, for Christmas, I got that new Tube Screamer, the new Tube. Tube Screamer. That's pretty great. I like that. I like the blend control on that. It kind of takes away some of that nasal mid bump type sound that Tube Screamers have. And I just traded for a Greer Lightspeed, which I've borrowed that from a friend before, so I'm looking forward to that pedal again because, man, that was a great pedal.
Yeah, that's a fantastic overdrive. That's a staple for sure.
And what else do I got? Wampler Terraform, which is really cool. It's got a bunch of different modulation effects. They all sound great. And like a Pink Panther delay by JHS, and then a Strymon Big Sky. That's basically what I'm running on my pedal board right now. And then my amps, I go stereo. Well, I guess you call it stereo. The two outs of the Big Sky. One goes to a Vox AC15, and the other goes to a Fender Deluxe, the 68 custom.
Ooh, I like those.
That's pretty. And those two amps sound really good together. And I run those pretty clean, and then just get everything from the pedals.
Yeah, that's how I usually do things too. I don't know. It's just always been more versatile and worked easier. I think we're also kind of spoiled because the pedals nowadays are so good.
Oh, they are.
I don't think you could really pull that off, that running clean and getting everything from pedals. Like, that would have been hard to pull off when we were kids.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been the way to go. That's why nobody did it, I guess.
Right.
But that's a good combo that you have there, the AC15. And I was really hoping, like, please say deluxe reverb. It's like, say deluxe reverb. I'm like, yeah, that's a money combo right there. It
really does sound good.
So I have never spent just a ton of time with an AC style amp. I've had one on hand for like maybe about a month that I did use for a giveaway. It was it's a Third Power. What was that? It was so long ago. Yeah, it was such a gorgeous amp, so good, and it just was really a fight for me to find a drive that worked good with it. It was, and I think I've heard that other people have had that struggle too. But do you run into that with ACs?
Well, you know what I did? Since I'm such a nerd, I had to change it up a little bit. So I put new tubes in it, and I also switched out the greenback speaker for a it's that warehouse speaker, the one that they always recommend for everything. I
don't know which one do they recommend.
Geez, I can't. It's escaping me right now.
The only one that I can think of off the top of my head that I remember the name of is the Reaper, but I don't know if that's it.
No, it's not the Reaper. It's the shoot. Maybe I'll remember in a couple minutes. But yeah, I changed it out with the warehouse speaker, and it really like just kind of rounded that treble off, and it just sounds so much better by itself and with pedals now. Made a big difference. I replaced the tubes with I believe it was Tongue Soul and maybe Electro Harmonics preamp tubes, I think. Mm-hmm. But that really warmed it up. I didn't really notice much difference in the overall drive, but just playing it clean, it was definitely made a little bit difference, made it warmer. And then the speaker made the most difference. It definitely warmed it up a little bit. But
speakers, I am guilty of this too. I don't think we as gear nerds like give speakers enough credit, because like you don't hear about people swapping speakers all that often. And like pedals, sure, like all day, different drive pedals, different whatever. But you don't ever hear much speaker talk. But speakers are literally what makes the sound.
Yeah.
Like,
and
they're huge. They have such a big impact.
Like, I think that speaker was like $90 or $100, less than I would spend for a pedal. And it made a huge difference. I couldn't believe how much better it sounded after I made the change.
Yeah, I've got my grandpa's Champ here, and it's always sounded kind of cool, but Champs have their limitations. But then I swapped in a warehouse. It's their anniversary Alnico, and it's like an 8-inch. It's a very small speaker specifically for those Champs.
Yeah,
and it just fixed every complaint that I had. Like it would do this like really weird flubby thing where the speaker just couldn't quite handle it. Like you could hear the amp breaking up, but then the speaker was also kind of rattling around in a not very pleasant way. And it fixed all of that. It sounds like the most perfect Champ now with that, just that simple speaker upgrade. It's fantastic.
And it's not even a real expensive upgrade, but it makes such a big difference in your tone.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is, some people, and again, myself included, may not like know what we want. Like we know what kind of drive sound we want.
Yeah.
So it's easy, like, I want a light speed or whatever. But like we may not know like what is the difference between a creamback and a greenback sonically?
Right.
You know, like you can read all the descriptive words, but if you haven't played around with it, it's hard to really know. So it's speakers are important, everybody. Don't neglect the speakers. Speaking of the Lightspeed, did you know that Nick recently moved to Portland?
I saw that he had moved to Portland. I did see that, but he's keeping his business in Georgia, right?
Yeah. I think he's doing all of the pedal stuff still like as normal.
Yeah,
with the guys in the shop there. I think he's doing. I might be speaking out of turn here, but I think he's going to be building the amps here.
Oh, okay.
I think I may have made that up. So don't hold me to that, Gear Amps fans. I can't remember. But yeah, I actually met up with him the other day. I knew that he had just moved across the country, and I needed some styrofoam packing peanuts for a scarecrow that I was making for my mom. And yeah, we met up, and he had a whole box of packing peanuts for me, and we, socially distanced hello, and it was a good time. It was just weird to see him here. Like, you're here now.
Portland is like the Nashville of the West. I mean, it just seems like so many pedal companies and gear guys and just amazing bands and stuff come from that area. It's crazy.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Every time I've gone to Nashville, there's definitely like some hipster Portland places that I go eat at. I'm like, this restaurant literally could be in Portland. Like, it looks like a Portland restaurant. I don't know how that happened. It's kind of, I don't know, different cities for sure, and they have different vibes once you're there, but there's a lot of similarities. I think Nashville is the only other place in the country that I would choose to live. Yeah,
that would be cool.
Well, we're getting down to the last few minutes here, and I've got a couple classic questions to ask you, but now is the point at which this is your time to shine. This is your time to tell the people whatever's been on your mind, anything you want to plug. This is your opportunity.
Let's see, my big opportunity here. Yeah, I mean, if you're into guitar picks, if you're into trying something different, that's not just the normal flimsy pick that you buy at the the Guitar Center or whatever, and not to put any of that stuff down because I used that stuff for years. And I mean, find the guitar pick works for you, and that works. But if you want to try something different, try out my picks at Honey Picks, and I've got an Etsy store. I'm working hard to get a website up with a new store, working on that. But besides that, like, don't just check my stuff out. There's a guy called John Tron Davidson, and he has this YouTube channel called Heavy Ripping, and he's kind of like the guy that has brought the pick makers all together in this big community. And if you go on heavyripping.com, he's got a bunch of different reviews and things about picks. He really just knows everything about picks. So go check him out. Check out all the different picks that he reviews and things like that. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say besides that.
All right, that works. Okay, we're getting into the classic questions here. So I know you're probably ready to go with this, aren't you?
I am ready. I know exactly what you're going to ask.
All right. First off, what's your favorite Boss pedal?
That one's easy. That's a BF2 flanger.
Oh yeah, my man. I love the BF2.
And I had that pedal. I bought it at a pawn shop for $25 probably 10 years ago. And I sold it, I think, probably 3 years ago. And I have missed it every day. Like, nothing gets that sound. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I think of all the pedals I've had, and I've had some good pedals. I just really miss that Boss BF2. Like, it just did something to the signal. It just, I don't know. It's just, I was stupid to sell it. I'm going to buy another one off Reverb, but right now everybody seems to think that the BF2 is the greatest too, because the prices have gone up every year that I sold it. So maybe I should just go ahead and buy it before it keeps going.
Before it's a Klon.
Right. Yeah.
I can't believe the Klon prices, honestly. Like, I remember back when I really started paying attention to gear stuff. I'm like, wow, Klon is $1,200 or $1,500. Like, what? That's crazy.
Right.
Now they're going for like 3 and 5. Well, I don't know if they're selling for 5, but I've seen them listed for 5.
I've seen them listed for 5, and I'm like, you know that you can get really, really good, Klon clones for $200, right?
Right. I mean, I get it. I get
Right.
there's like there's a little bit of something. It's kind of like I was talking to somebody the other day, I can't remember who, about Gibsons. Like, I know that there are better guitars, and there's equally good Epiphones and all that jazz. But like, if I want a Les Paul, I really want it to say Gibson on the headstock, and I know it doesn't make any sense. And I know that they're not necessarily the greatest company in the world. I know all that stuff, but I want it to say Gibson.
Yeah,
I just
do. I mean, it's no different than if you pick up a Squier guitar that plays amazing, and you pick up a Fender guitar that plays amazing. Even though the Squier costs less, you're still going to pick that Fender up because it's a Fender. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just same thing with Gibson and Epiphone. You're just going to pick up that Gibson because it is the Gibson. Like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
I think there's probably a level of that with the Klon stuff too. Like, I can't personally justify that kind of coin on that particular pedal, especially when I have clones that I like really well.
Yeah,
I really don't think there would be much of an improvement.
Right.
But I kind of get it.
I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like it's more of an investment than it is to have to play. I'd be afraid to play it. I wouldn't want to break a $3,000 pedal. I'd just keep that thing, and maybe the prices will go up to $6,000, $7,000 in a few years,
Well, that's the thing is, especially with that pedal, if you break it, it's hard to fix because it's all gooped up too. So it's not even like an easy repair. So yeah, I get it. It's fortunately, like, they're not probably going to break. Like, a foot switch might go out at some point, but that's pretty easy. All right, here we go. Final question, and I know you've been prepared for this, so here we go. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Okay, so my wife makes the best pizza that you've ever tried. She makes the dough by hand. Everything's from scratch. And this dough has herbs in it. I don't know, she cooks with some kind of oil. She puts pesto along with marinara on it. And she's got like, what is it? Is it roasted tomatoes? Ham. I mean, cheese, but not too much. But the crust is not. It's like a hand toss. It's not super thick. Nothing like a pan, and it's not super thin. It's just perfect, man. And it comes out of the oven like you got to eat it, like right out of the oven. It's so good. But yeah, it's delicious. And the way I eat my pizza is the way that you should eat it, with Parmesan cheese, crushed red pepper, and hot sauce.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. I like your style.
Now,
I like that.
Now, Blake, I will say this. I know you're not a fan of pineapple, and my wife is a big fan of the ham and pineapple, so I eat it, but it's not my favorite thing. But something that I think you would like is there's a hot sauce with pineapple in it, and I'll have to take a picture of it and send it. I think I did share it to Tomob Facebook group a while back.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot what it's called, but I remember this post.
It's like Marie Sharps or Marie something hot sauce.
Yeah.
Oh man, right. It is so good. Like, it is really. I think you would like that because it's just a little hint of pineapple, but oh man, it's so good on pizza.
I have had some hot sauces with pineapple in them before that I liked. Yeah. So I'm willing to give this a try. This sounds good. I love hot sauces. Yeah. I'm a huge hot sauce junkie.
Yeah. Me too. My kids are always like, anything that I eat, and they're like, "You gonna put hot sauce on that, Daddy?" Like my little, and my 2-year-old even knows well enough not to eat the food that's on my plate, because she'll look at it and she'll say, "Daddy, that's hot sauce, ain't it?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, my kids are kind of weird. Like, like, I don't know if do you guys get Tim's jalapeno chips over there? I'm not sure if that's a nationwide thing or if it's just a Northwest thing.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I think it is a Northwest thing, but they're not the craziest heat level in the world. But you get, after you've been eating them for a while, it's like, whoo, it's kind of warm in here.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hot. I can easily like polish off a whole bag and be fine, but it definitely creeps up on you a little bit after you've had a few handfuls.
Yeah.
And for a long time, Vincent would just eat them. He would just eat them like it was no big deal. And then all of a sudden, one day, he found out they were spicy.
Oh, wow.
It was like, you used to eat these all the time. What are you talking about? But yeah, he can do spicy chips, but he doesn't like any hot sauce on his eggs or anything like that. And I'm like, come on, kid. You're letting your father down.
Hot sauce on eggs.
Yeah.
You've got to have hot sauce on your eggs. I mean,
you have to. You have to.
Yeah. I mean,
how do you feel about Tabasco sauce? I feel like for me, Tabasco sauce it's not the greatest sauce in the world, but if it's between, like for eggs, it's a perfect example. If it's between having no hot sauce and having Tabasco, I'm definitely going to put the Tabasco on.
Yeah, I mean, Tabasco, it's definitely not my favorite. But like you said, like if I don't have another hot sauce around and I've got Tabasco, I'll grab the Tabasco. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely not one of my favorite sauces.
No, it's an entry level. It's what got me into sauces when I was in like third grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what's Tabasco? Oh, this tastes pretty good. And then from then I was just like, give me all of the hot sauce.
Yeah, right.
Do you have a favorite hot sauce?
I just really like that. I've tried like 7 or 8 of that same. I think it's Marie Sharp's. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I think it's Marie Sharp's. But they've got like mango, pineapple. They've got a smoked habanero that is.
Ooh.
Oh, it is so good. And they've got a like a sweet pepper, a sweet heat pepper or something like that. I don't know. They're all good. Any one of those I'll take.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
I'll give it a try. I'll report back.
And they don't, it's not like there's not a lot of heat to their hot sauce, which I can get down with the heat, but there is this more like a flavor hot sauce. Like you could just like, you could drown your food in this hot sauce and you wouldn't be burned up, It's not, it's not hot to me at all. Even though it says habanero and you think, oh yeah, it's going to be hot. It's not really hot. It just tastes good on everything,
I like that. That sounds good. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I can do the heat and I like some pretty hot sauces, but they just have to taste good.
Yeah. I don't want to eat something, put hot sauce on it, and then it just be hot sauce.
No.
Like I want it to enhance what I'm eating.
Yes. Like I did that one chip challenge. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah.
I saw that you turned it off before the crazy got.
It was gross.
Yeah.
It didn't taste good at all.
Yeah.
Like it was like, this is uncomfortably hot. Yes. But beyond it being really hot, it just tasted bad.
Yeah. Right.
Like, all right, everybody, for Rick, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in and riding with me to the end of this episode. It's been awesome. It's an astonishing thing, honestly. It's really crazy, especially if you look at like YouTube data versus podcast data. And it makes sense because of the way people consume things. But I was just looking at Spotify tells me like the percentage that people actually finish of the podcast. And you all listen to like on average 85% of the episode, which is crazy. That is so insane compared to like YouTube, where it's like they watch 3% of your video, which is really interesting. But anyway, thank you all to everyone who rides out to the end. I know that the ends are usually just a lot of plugs and a lot of thank yous and a lot of requests to share this with a friend. Please review the podcast. Please check out the tonemob.com/sweetwater and tonemob.com/reverb links for all of your gear purchasing needs. A little bit of that comes back and helps keep some wind in the sails of this weird pirate ship. So yeah, I know it's normally just a bunch of that stuff and probably not that interesting, but thank you so much for sticking around for the full thing and for supporting the show and all that jazz. So let's wrap this thing up. Yeah, talk to you next week. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.